All right, Brandon Faust, Mold Solutions. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here as always.
Yeah, man, good to have you. So we talk about, this mold being a silent killer, and it's causing a lot of health issues. You introduced us to some great doctors that we brought in, and we got Lori that does the testing as well. But you're seeing this stuff on a daily basis, aren't you?
Absolutely. Lori's great, and she's a wealth of information when it comes to the mycotoxin end of things. And that's really, I think, the part that most people are falling down on because maybe they don't even understand it. Maybe they don't even know what a mycotoxin is. Most
Right,
people, when they say mycotoxin, they actually say microtoxin,
right.
thinking it's tiny, but it's actually myco, the Greek word for fungus. And it's
Mm,
basically the gas that mold releases or toxic substance, however you want to classify it. But it is a something that mold releases to defend its territory, and it's super tiny in terms of you can fit 10 mold spores on the tip of a hair, and the mycotoxins are about one third the size of a mold spore. So
wow.
30 mycotoxins on the tip of a hair. So it's an ultrafine particle that is being released into the environment. And then when you look at the pressure of a home from the negative air to the positive pressure that can come into a home, like when you put on the vent hood for the kitchen, right? When you kind of have that thing going, it's doing a negative air, it's pushing air out of the house.
Right,
Same thing when you have the fan in your bathroom going,
right.
that puts the home under negative air. So you're actually pulling air from crevices in the home. So if you have mold behind your wall, and that the mycotoxins that are being released are now being pulled into the atmosphere, and mold transfers or cross populates through air currents.
Wow.
So people are breathing those in, and a lot of old school inspectors and even the bodies that certify the industry are not looking at probably the most important element, which is the actual mycotoxin, because that's
Mm,
what the doctors are finding are making people sick is the
yeah.
actual mycotoxin.
So, Brandon, so your average home inspector, when they come in and do a home inspection, are they looking behind the baseboards, or they're not really digging in, right?
Absolutely not.
Right.
They pretty much any inspector, um, from a mold inspector to a home inspector, is usually not going to do an invasive inspection. So unfortunately, the industry is not in a place where it needs to be because you're not necessarily going to find it through air samples
Mm,
because the air samples are only testing for spores. They're actually it's a spore trap. That's what they're called.
mm,
So when the lab is developing them, they're only looking at what type of spore is present, not the actual mycotoxin, which is what causes the issue.
wow.
So that's why somebody like Lori Frankel from Mosaic is so important because she offers a test that a person can do where it's a urine sample and they're actually testing what's in the body or blood samples to test what's in the body.
Wow.
So if a person is experiencing some sort of mysterious illness or they have these physical things that they cannot explain, and it's different from person to person. For
Right.
me, it was a pain in my chest that wouldn't go away. I was fatigued. I had a fever once a month, right? And I thought I was okay because the air sample said I was,
Mm,
so it was a wrong assumption. That was in 2019, and it was actually behind the walls. And, water was getting in, and it was a slow leak, which tends to be sort of one of the more dangerous. I just had a client recently who she was she was sick. She's a CPA. She's really intelligent, able, was putting on weight, couldn't figure it out. Body was not doing well, and had her blood sample come back. She was elevated in mycotoxins, and she's like, my doctor is telling me it's mold. So the house looked clean. It looked good. I pulled this one panel. There was an access panel, and I just saw just a little snippet there, had somebody come and test it. Sure enough, it came back as Stachybotrys. And I said, look, once we open this up, it could lead to more. Sure enough, it ended up being in probably 60% of the home behind the walls. There was a slow leak from the AC unit that was then spreading under the tiles, wicking
wow.
up to the drywall
Mm,
and impacting, that condo. And it was, absolutely that's what it was. I had a very so my thing
yeah.
was very similar. So
Man,
yes,
I
the
can see that.
mycotoxin,
Yeah,
right?
you can see that. I mean, when water gets into different places, especially if it's underneath the tile, underneath the carpet, behind backsplashes or whatever it might be, baseboards, water can cause a lot of damage. Not only, of course, having to replace it, but like you're saying, the long-term effects, because people don't think naturally your mind doesn't go right to, oh, maybe it's mold, maybe that's why I'm getting sick, or why the kid's having the asthma. Those are scenarios that we've talked about over the years on this show. We're talking with Brandon Faust, Mold Solutions, and he is a longtime friend of the Consumer Quarterback Show. Another great example of a local area business professional, business owner, husband wife team as well. You got that fine family dynamic going on, and those beautiful kids that you have as well. Love seeing the social posts and all that good stuff.
I have to put my kid to work for me. I mean, he asks for these toys, and I'm like, I'm just not paying for that. It's not happening. But
Yeah.
you know, if you want to put your money towards it, then you can. So
There you go.
you're gonna do a little bit of, and truthfully,
like
he's
it.
part of the company, right? Like,
Yeah.
the company wouldn't exist if it wasn't for my son.
Yeah.
Right. That's just the truth, because it was him getting sick from mold when he was a month old,
Wow.
right, and not able to breathe, and then me finding it, which really put me on this path.
Wow.
Prior to that, I never looked. Mold is like an ugly thing. If this is not a, you know, one of those things that you kind of grow up going, I'm going to be a mold guy, right? I was
Right.
in more of a corporate sort of background before I went into, you know, blue collar, sort of running my own company, mold, you know, and before that I was doing photography. So it's like, you know, just kind of, I love beautiful things and, you know, having these like high-end discussions, and now here I am in people's crawl spaces and attics, and but it was because of my son and him going through that I was
Yeah.
like, wow, this is actually really important,
Yeah.
because I don't know what I would have done had he, you know, had we not found that.
Right.
You know, we would have taken him to doctors. They would have been doing all kinds of tests on him, and he would have been at a month old getting poked, blood draw, all kinds of stuff. And
Yeah.
I just realized, like, I'm not the only parent that's going to go through something like this.
Right.
You know, so that was really, if it wasn't for him, you know, Mold Solutions wouldn't exist. That's
Yeah.
just the
He's
truth of
he's
it.
the reason behind it.
So, you know, I kind of, and he'll, if he wants the company when he's older and he earns it, he'll get it. But in the meantime, he's got to work for it.
There
So
you go.
He'll be
That's,
he'll be
that's
in
how I grew
commercials,
up.
you know?
You know, dad would say, hey, look, if you're not playing a sport or you're not involved in some type of activity and it's summertime or you're out of school, you're going to work with us.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
me and my brothers, we figured out a way to stay active. You know,
Absolutely.
everything from, you know, got into high school rodeo. We did to track and, you know, of course, baseball, football, basketball, that kind of stuff. But yeah, you know, isn't it funny, as a kid, you'll stay busy if your dad says he's going to take you to work.
Yeah, no freeloaders, right? Like,
Yeah.
my kids are going to be working, because truthfully, when you think about it, you know, the world's not getting any easier,
Yeah.
right? So you got to make sure that they know how to actually make money, be entrepreneurial, figure it out. And I hope that my wife and I are setting that example.
Amen.
For
Yeah,
my
problem
kids.
solving, you know,
Yeah.
definitely problem solving. Critical thinking is something that's getting, I think, overlooked in a lot of schooling type situations.
Right. Being able to deal with people, being able to understand their needs, their wants, their complaints,
Yep.
what they like, you know, all of those things. So,
That's right.
you know, and it's one of those things when you own a small business, it takes a lot of work. So we also try to, you know, put time aside for the kids as well.
Right.
So, but it is a lot of work.
Yeah, family time, kids time. Yeah, absolutely, man. Work hard, play hard, and you have that sprint. You know, you have that sprint in life. You're sprinting through a job, or you're sprinting through, you know, the week, and then you get to that payoff, right?
Yes.
So then you take that payoff, and then you do your vacation, or you do those different value adds for the family.
Yeah, because those are the things that, you know, that they're going to remember, right? It's like
Exactly.
you only get 18 summers with them, you know, and maybe a few more if you're lucky, right?
Exactly.
But
That's
yeah,
true.
that's why we're doing it, and it's for our kids. It's, you know, for the love of our kids and other families that might be experiencing similar things. Where,
Right.
you know, and I can't tell you, that's part of the thing that is so rewarding is when I go into a home and they have young kids and they're like, look, can't figure it out. We've been chronically sick. You know, we have this chronic cough or whatever it may be, right? These immune issues, hives. We can't be in our homes. We're having reactions, and being
Yeah.
able to go in there and figure out where it's at, figuring out what's causing it. You know, whether it's the mold in the AC system, which is cladosporium, which is one of these things that I think is so much more common
Yep.
than most people realize as an actual toxic substance that is being distributed throughout the entire home.
Right.
It's a real issue. You know?
Yeah.
So being able to help with that makes a huge difference. It's a really rewarding thing for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Brandon Faust, Mold Solutions here in Tampa Bay. What's the best way for people to connect, and what are maybe some telltale signs for people to look out for?
The most important test is the people test. You know, is your home making you sick? You know, are you able to, when you leave your home, do you feel better? Or, you know, like let's say you go on a vacation, you come back, you know, and you're feeling sick again, but when you were out, you were feeling fine. So I think that that's probably the most important thing. There's sometimes a smell, there's sometimes not. There's when it was behind my walls, you never would have guessed. There was no smell, there was no visual,
Hmm.
even there was no water. Like dry to the eye doesn't mean that it's necessarily dry. You know, and even if I would have used a thermal imaging camera, I don't know that I would have found it. You know, potentially if I would have used a pen meter, right, where you actually plug it into the wall, I might have found some moisture. But I had even removed a baseboard in my room and just happened to remove the wrong one, right? It was on a wall where there was no water in it.
Wow.
You know, so you don't always know. So the main thing is the people test, and then finding inspectors and people that actually do understand the health impact of it, and they're not just inspectors that necessarily work for the insurance company, or they may have some sort of old school viewpoints and they're not really in tune to mycotoxins and the actual impact that that can have, you know, on your life and your health. You know, so those are some of the things that I would be looking for in terms of finding an inspector. Also checking out your AC unit, and just realize that a lot of times the AC guys don't necessarily know what mold looks like. They might call it buildup or grime. They actually legally can't even say that it's mold,
Right.
you know, but they should at least be saying, hey, this is something that we're concerned about. You might want to get this tested,
Look into further.
you know, because it probably is 80% of the homes have an issue,
Yeah.
you know, with the AC.
What's the website?
Moldsolutions.com, very simple. And then on Instagram, it's mold.solutions. We're putting, you know, all kinds of tips and information there every single day. That's a great way to connect with us. And then obviously they can look us up on Google, anybody in Tampa Bay. Mold Solutions, you know, we're here local, right on the border of Clearwater and Largo,
Nice.
you know, so they
Good
can reach out
location.
like that. Yeah.
Awesome. Brandon Faust, always a pleasure.
Always. Thanks.
Thanks for coming in.